let's move on. I'm going to talk about the SOAR, which I keep mentioning, and you're probably all still scratching your heads, wondering what on earth I'm on about. So I'm going to share screen again. So if you can mute and switch off your videos. Okay, so strictly speaking, the SOAR, oh, hang on, there we go. The SOAR isn't actually an AI tool. It's not part of AI, but it's a really, really useful piece of kit to have when working in an AI way. I use this a lot, and I often spend a whole day working with people on this. I use this as my planning tool, if you like. So when I'm doing an away day with the church, this is my go-to tool. So SOAR, it stands for strengths, opportunities, aspirations, and resources, or you could use it for results. It's up to you. I use the term resources because I feel that to begin talking about results runs the risk of people thinking in terms of bums on seats if you're planning a church mission, for example, when it's not about bums on seats, it's about mission. And if people don't see the results they think they should see, they begin to think they've failed. Whereas the thing that most people will probably have heard of is SWOT. And this stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It was really popular a few years ago, particularly in corporate situations. But I feel that the problem with this method is that the weaknesses and the strengths can very easily become the focus of the people working with it. So instead of an idea becoming a can-do thing, it very quickly becomes a can't-do thing. So SOAR is way more AIE than SWOT, because it bases all its discussions on the strengths. And you'll usually see this in a grid like this. So you can see that the strengths and opportunities, aspirations and resources tells you what those words mean if you're not sure. But I find often you can use a grid like this, and you can do this for yourself actually. You can use these as an individual, or you can use them as a whole group. I find it works for me anyway, and everybody's different. I find it works best in a linear kind of way. So I'm going to show you a real life example of when I've used this. So you can see here, I've got a big long poster roll. I love poster rolls. I'm a proper poster roll freak. So this is what my SOAR looks like when I'm doing a SOAR. You can see strengths, aspirations, and I've put how to there, which is kind of like the ideas. So I've just changed the word because people found it easier to understand. It's the same difference. This particular circuit wanted to plan its mission in line with our calling. So here at the top, I've put worship, which is one of our callings. And I asked people to identify their strengths of the church in accordance with worship. So you can see here under strengths, they've put good preaching, quiet contemplation, a variety of styles. So this is what they viewed their strengths of their church was. You can also feed in, remember the conversations that we had earlier that we discussed that we could have with people coming in and out of the church. The strengths that they identified there would feed into this as well. So wherever people have talked about the strengths of worship, you can put it in here. So it's not a completely separate entity. Everything begins to feed in together. So when I asked them for their aspirations, which were what could we really do with this church? Because it's next door to strengths here, you can see, or maybe you will, maybe in the next screen, you can see that there's the strengths there, good preaching, and then they came up with their aspirations. A bit smudgy, I do apologise, but they've come up with ideas, but they had to look at the strengths that were right next door. So they're looking at the strengths and then writing down their aspirations and their ideas, but only in terms of what was written in the previous column. Then on the next piece, that's the aspirations there. And then on this last piece, you can see where they've, on another day, they had to put in their resources. This particular church was wanting to use healthy churches. So right at the very top there, they've got energized by faith, because that was one of the marks of a healthy church that they were working to. So they've got the strengths and the aspirations. I added in some extra ones here because that's what that church wanted. But there you are, you can see the opportunities. And then they had to mark out the resources. But all the way along the whole length, they could see that the strengths that I identified were to do with being energized by faith. The opportunities, which were their ideas, were based on those strengths. And then the resources were resourcing those opportunities based on the strengths, based on energized by faith. So it becomes completely linear. And the really handy thing about what I found working this way is people can see their own thinking all the way through the whole process. It also really handy for those who don't attend a planning day like this, can see where your ideas have come from. And it makes it much easier for those who haven't been involved to see why you've arrived at the ideas that you have. So what I do after that is then to have a little bit of a vote going on. And I give people 3 sticky dots each, never more than 3 sticky dots. And I ask them to vote on the ideas that they want to carry forward. It's not an AI tool, but it fits in very, very well with AI. People only have those 3 sticky dots and they can only vote for the ideas that have been fully worked out, right down to the resources. So it's a prioritization thing. It doesn't mean all the other ideas get binned off. It means that they are put to one side while people concentrate on the top 5. Never work on more than 5 ideas. It's too much. So people can use their sticky dots how they like. You pick the top 5 of those ideas, and you know they've got a good chance of working because they're based on the strengths that people have identified, and you know you can resource it. So you've done a lot of grunt work in just a short space of time. So then let's have a look at the summary of the SOAR process and why it's useful and handy. So it's handy because it's a good starting point based on the strengths that you have already identified, usually within those conversations that you start off with. If you're working in groups, it's really inclusive because you could perhaps give each of the groups one of the group of strengths and ask them to list their ideas. And you can get people to move around as well. You can get a little bit democratic about it and use different conversation techniques. And there's loads of ones out there, and it helps people feel, it gives a lot more buy-in because everybody is buying into and talking about things together. And nobody is quietened off. Nobody has no chance to speak. And the louder voices have the opportunity just to be a little bit more quiet. So it can be a little bit more democratic. And the handy thing is that it's a linear process, the way that I do it anyway. And it means that anyone who wasn't involved in the planning can see what the conversations were. It makes it easy to track your time together. And it also works like a set of minutes. Nobody has to write this up. You've just spent all day writing it up. So you have your record there in front of you.